I'm nearing my 9th anniversary as one of your ministers. Having started here as the new senior minister in 2017, following Reverend Roger Birchhausen's 25-year ministry and this congregation's massive growth during that time. This congregation was lay-led for most of its history, which means they didn't have a minister. And then they only had one called senior minister before me. And eventually there were other staff and associate ministers. But when I arrived, the culture here was very much grounded in that lay-led mentality. And much of how things worked was built on decades of stability and interpersonal familiarity. Truth be told, a lot of those things didn't really work very well with me because I was a totally new to you minister who didn't have those same decades of familiarity. And one of those things was our governance structure, the way our governing board worked. You see, in the 2010s, many large Unitarian Universalist congregations, including ours, began using a style of governance. It was sort of like the fashion. We all did it. I don't know why. And this style of governance was imported from the corporate world. The board set policies and goals. The executive and staff implemented them. They were called ends and means, and there were lots of policies and procedures to go with them. It was a very hierarchical model, and one that didn't really work here, not with our lay-led fellowship DNA. It had worked okay because the executive, led by Reverend Roger, had many years of relationship and trust already established. But with my arrival, it felt like putting a square peg into a round hole. One of the things I am most proud of in my ministry here is that a few years ago, I helped our governing board move to a different model, one that is more collaborative between the board, ministers, and staff, and shares our vision for our future amongst us using an ongoing strategic plan. And then Hannah and I decided to move into co-equal ministry, a structure of leadership that shares authority and responsibility equally between the two of us and with you. We have officially been co-ministers for about 15 months. We're starting to get the hang of it. One of the really beautiful things about our move to co-ministry and this shift in governance style is that we have freed ourselves, the ministers, the board, all of you, to share the ministry in ways that work best for our skills and our talents and our passions. As we've experimented with our new governance structure, we've been adding layers of leadership and our new hub and spoke model, which we've started off this year, to involve more fellowship folks in the vision and strategy and action that moves us forward together. This year, I have had so much fun working with the engagement hub team and our new adult faith formation team, our new membership team, and our new meaningful fun team. Did you know we had a meaningful fun team? And we're adding to that hub and spoke, we're adding a new children and youth RE team starting next week. All of this movement is along the same trajectory. We're sharing the ministry of this fellowship in greater and deeper ways. In some ways, this movement forward is sort of like our goose friends returning back to our ancestral nesting ground, where we all pitch in together to live our mission and values within and beyond our walls. And in a couple of months, we will get another opportunity to continue strengthening our shared ministry together. Reverend Hannah will be taking a 4-month sabbatical, starting in mid-July and returning in mid-November. Many of you will remember that I took a 4-month sabbatical a couple of years ago, and look, we're all still here to tell the tale. It's gonna be fine. Sabbaticals are a wonderful way that you support your ministers, allowing us the time away to explore our interests and skills outside the day-to-day operations of the fellowship, and to recharge our hearts, minds, and spirits for this deep work that we do among you. And sabbaticals also allow the congregation, you, to explore your relationship to each other and to our community separate from any one particular clergy leader. This is so good and so healthy. I'm excited for Hannah to have her first sabbatical. We have arranged wonderful support to assist us while she's gone, and you will hear more about that soon. And the truth is, friends, I will probably be taking another sabbatical in another year or two. It's just part of the cycle of our shared ministry. What a gift that we can support each other in collectively caring for this place and for each other and discovering what we are called toward together.
Yesterday, here at the fellowship, we opened our doors to a Trans Day of Visibility event hosted by some local organizers from Hate Free Outagamie and other sponsoring organizations like Fair Wisconsin and Diverse and Resilient. And here in our building, over the course of about 5 hours, trans folks and their families filtered in and got to connect to community. And there's ways it was a pretty low-key event. It was pretty chill. There was some crafting and some sheet cake. It's the universal sacrament. And coffee and art projects, some remarks from organizers, tables with information. Some people got plugged into community support services like help with legal name change documentation. Some people got their faces painted. Some people got both. Some people simply got to see a room full of trans folks of all ages making some quiet community. And a couple of you came through, but most of you, except perhaps for the kids who I think might get access to the leftover chocolate cake later. Sorry, there wasn't enough for all of us, so I decided it's for the kids. Right, most of us, you wouldn't know the event had even happened. But that event was possible because of you. The light, ooh, there we go. It briefly wasn't possible, but now it is. There we go. The lights that I flipped on to welcome the organizers into the building, the bathrooms with gender-inclusive signage, the chairs and tables, the coffee, my time, all of that was possible to offer because of you, because of us, because of the ways you all have said yes over and over and over again to this place, to the wider community, said yes over and over again to the idea that the world could be different than the way it is now. This world and the way it is now, where it feels so easy to succumb to despair as we watch bombings and abductions happen in 30-second clips on our phones over and over again. In that world, we need a place where we can show up and meet real flesh and blood neighbors in their need. In this world where people seem to increasingly value rigid adherence to theology and ideology, we need this place that offers an open-hearted humanism that expresses itself in many pathways. This place that argues that evolving and expanding our thinking is an asset rather than a liability. This world that needs our tender hearts and our witness too. There are many, many moments, not just yesterday, that you all make possible, though you never get to see them. Phone calls with people whose spouse has just died. Text threads with someone who has lost their job and doesn't know what to do. Conversations about what we're going to do about that tree back there that lost a branch in one of the recent storms. It's real. I saw it here Thursday night. I came here to assemble pledge packets with Tim Gruber, and I looked out the window and said, oh my, there it is. That's possible because of you, because we are together in those moments, even though you're not always there. And you don't just make those possible with financial support, though we are certainly going to get to that in a few minutes. You make them possible with your sense of vision. You make them possible by sharing the ministry of this place, not only with Reverend Christina and myself, but with each other. But that's one of those ideas, right? Like, yes, we share the ministry, we share it with the ministers, we share it with each other. That's one of those ideas that sounds good in theory, but when the rubber hits the road, man, it's complicated. Because sometimes we want so badly for the world to be different than the one we have today that we can forget what it will actually ask of us to get there, what it will actually take from us to build the world we envision. And Reverend Christina and I have been talking recently about the people who have been visiting, who've been showing up here at our congregation over the last year or so. And we said, you know, the visitors we see today, the people who are showing up, who are choosing this community, they are not ambivalent about community. They're not lukewarm about the idea of a committed place to be together. The people who are showing up right now from our hurting world are hungry for something real and something meaningful and something powerful. People are hungry to be able to have a place that feels both tender, where they can bring the fullness of themselves, and also powerful, where they see that change is possible, not only in their own lives, but in the world we inhabit. And so I've been thinking about what it is that we invite them into, how it is that we invite them into that sense of possibility. How it is that we invite them into RV formation. Because this congregation operates much like a flock of geese. Sometimes silly geese, but that we operate like a flock of geese flying in a V. And that no one person has the market cornered on being at the front. Right? No one person, no one demographic, no one family, right, is alone at the front. And in fact, we take turns. But sometimes the gift of these new folks who show up is not just that we get to show them how great we are at flocking together. Sometimes the gift of folks who show up hungry is that they remind us what we are capable of that we have forgotten how to do. Sometimes the gift of people who show up hungry is that they show us the ways that we have become a resident population, which is the technical term for a group of geese who no longer migrates. Right? A resident population who has found a very nice retention pond somewhere that never ices over. People leave bread. It's a pretty good life. I didn't know there were cheese curds in Christina's story. I was like, all right. I also would struggle to migrate away from somewhere with cheese curds. But that sometimes when people show up hungry, whether they are new to this community or folks who've been here for 50 years and are still connected to that very core of what's possible, right? Sometimes the gift they give us is that they say, hey, I see we've been at this pond for a while now. I think we could do something different. I think we're capable of more. The Trans Day of Visibility event happened here because I knew that when the organizers said, hey, we're a little behind on finding a venue, could we use your space? I knew that the answer was yes. I knew that when I said yes, I was saying yes because that was the mission you had entrusted to our shared ministry. That it was my responsibility as I carried you with me to open our doors to those seeking community aligned with our values, whether it's Sunday morning or not. And you know, not one of the unchurched Gen Z, queer, and trans organizers came to me with concerns that holding the event at a church would be a problem. It's a fellowship, I know. But I need you to know that it quacks like a church to people on the outside, okay? Okay. You hear sermons on Sundays, it quacks like a church, guys. Because that is how solid their confidence was in this place's welcome. It was never even an issue. That's not to say we're perfect, but it is to say that other people notice that we are committed to the discipline of community that aligns with our values. And that before I could even get to giving that yes, you all have spent decades creating a reputation for this congregation as a place that welcomes LGBTQ community without hesitation or qualification, which you did over years of welcoming people and showing up and hiring and calling out queer ministers and staff. And you didn't build that. You didn't build that clarity by staying where you were. And we will not be able to build what is next for this fellowship by staying where we are. Metaphorically, this building is lovely. Just to be clear, talking about metaphorical journeys, we're not going anywhere. And when we talk about building for what's next, when we talk about our commitment to this place, to this people, to this community, and to these values, right, it's easy to think about the money and talk about the money and emphasize the money about how there isn't enough. It's easy to look at the balance sheet for the congregation and wonder, how are we going to deal with the HVAC? Do you know how expensive furnaces are? And the health insurance premium increases, and the snow removal bills. Dear God, the snow removal bills this year. It's easy to think about that in a way that we end up feeling confined, backed into a corner, when we come to you and say, we hope you'll give more this year. Especially given the state of the world, believe me, I feel the pinch in my own family too. Sometimes I think the scariest thing you can watch on a screen is the little one at Woodman's, where it tallies up your groceries as they check you out. But here's what I want you to know. First, as we get ready to talk about our annual giving campaign, as we get ready to talk about what it takes to have this building, to have this staff, to live these values, here's a few things I want you to know. First, we have already raised about $257,000 in giving commitments for this coming fiscal year from about 35 households who have been longtime firm supporters of this congregation. People who have sustained us over the long haul and still believe deeply in the work that this congregation is doing. People whose yes has been renewed over and over and over again. People whose yes built this and that and all of this. The second thing is that we have a $10,000 match for new pledges or increases made this week. Because people who have said yes to this congregation over and over and over again want other people to say yes with them. Like in Reverend Christina's story, Gilly doesn't take off by himself. He doesn't say, "See ya, suckers." He waits with them and invites them along, and maybe he waited longer than he would have preferred. But they flocked together. The third thing I need you to know is that our goal for our annual giving campaign for the coming fiscal year is $700,000. And that's a big number. You might say, we haven't seen that one in a while. But I know from the way we are together on Sundays, I know from the one-on-one conversations I have with you, I know that you are actually not interested in playing small in our hurting world right now, in shrinking who we are in the face of a world that feels increasingly hostile to our values. We are not interested in downplaying our clarity about what love looks like in the world. And the final thing I need you to know as we think about how we will make it there is that this place didn't start like this, with that gorgeous piano and all, so many amps and guitars and ukuleles and a drum machine and a beautiful pulpit and this gorgeous hardwood chancel and those chairs that are among the most comfortable worship sitting experiences you can have on this earth, frankly. Right? This gorgeous sanctuary, that flexible fellowship hall, an RE wing with, I think, 6 classrooms, give or take, several full-time staff, 2 ministers. It's easy to look at this and think that this is the state the fellowship has always been in. I can tell who's been here for a long time, so you're like, no. This place began just over 70 years ago with a dozen people in a living room. In living memory, this place was a dozen people in somebody's living room. This place has grown and changed. Y'all have seen lean times and full times. The world is offering itself to our imagination, not to our scarcity, not to our anxiety, not to our worst-case scenarios. The world is offering itself to our imagination for what is coming into being every day. And we can get there together. We can leave the retention pond, the place of comfort and stability. We can take to the open skies. We can trust the other geese in our V. We can trust the very fibers of our being calling us onward. Those of you who've been around a while know that the way is not guaranteed. But my heart leaps with joy when I ask the question for us together. What if we make it there? What if we make it there together? May it be so.